Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Hit Reviews with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about Studio Question's curious co-op horror game, The Blackout Club. Find out if I flourished in the fray with friends, or if I found myself sleepwalking my way through this experience.
Are you tired of the hustle and bustle of the big city? Or looking for a closer-knit community that you can really connect with? One that doesn't hearken to the needless noise of technological fads? Then come on down to Red Acre. Located in the Virginia National Quiet Radio Zone, we enjoy a scenic and self-sustaining lifestyle free of those metropolitan stresses. A more down-to-earth
Things aren't right here. Kids have been going missing. Coyotes, they say, but we never see them. And our parents, they sleepwalk every night. Sometimes roaming the streets, other times disappearing into places beneath our house that shouldn't exist. It's happening to us, too. We're blacking out, only to wake up far from our home and covered in fresh cuts. And then there's... some of us hear voices. They say they're helping us, guiding us. I can't tell if they're crazy. Maybe we're all going crazy, but I don't think we're alone. There's something out there, hurting people. We can't see it, except when we close our eyes. I have to go.
TLDR, everything is terrible in Red Acre. Well, okay, not everything, since I certainly appreciate the game's narrative. The game's prologue, for instance, may serve as a tutorial, but the narrative beats that existed in it were solid enough that I wouldn't recommend anyone to skip it, especially given the elements it introduces as well as the creeps. That said, there's a lot of the story that requires a bit of investigating. For instance, there's a fair amount of environmental storytelling, providing players chilling clues they're willing to look for the uncanny details strewn about the houses they explore or the eponymous maze. And if they're diligent enough about collecting bonus evidence in the maps, there's new journal entries to pore over in order to get bits of backstory they might otherwise lack. There's also dreams you can listen to try and get your bearings on the story. Just stick with it after that very awkward introductory one.
Well, hello there, my adventurous little kiddos.
And yet, all of that only scratches at the surface, courtesy of TVC's enhanced horror system. This system rests central to an eminently important aspect of the Blackout Club, as there exists an ARG built into its very guts. Its story is not strictly a linear thing, but is in fact being actively shaped by its community as they come together to investigate the deepest secret at its heart, solve puzzles, and to communicate with the voices that make Red Acre its home. That's right, those dreams you heard, those were questions asked by players, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you're willing to poke around its communities, you'll discover a deep rabbit hole rife with massive amounts of world building, character development, and fascinating yet creepy interactions with the voices. It's a genuinely neat system, and one which enables players to help direct the story even if they aren't central to these interactions. Or just to spectate because it's a wild ride. Still, there's more to the Blackout Club than its narrative quirks. See, it's a multiplayer-oriented stealth game that plays the role of one of the kids looking to fight against the conspiracy that grips Red Acre. In order to do this, you're presented with a series of tasks which range from recording photos of the weird happenings about town to collecting curious objects or even tracking down members of the club who've gone missing. Execution-wise, you have quite a few avenues to get these done, in part because of how interlinked Red Acre is, but also due to the acrobatic antics the kids can get into. Whether you want to clamber up the building and dive through a window, stealthily creep over and pick a lock, or just throw caution to the wind and kick it straight off its hinges, there's options. Though, given there's a small legion of sleepwalkers waiting to hear the slightest noise, as well as more perceptive lucids who can spot your sinful ways, discretion does remain the better part of valor, especially given the existence of the Shape, a nigh unstoppable monstrosity which roamed the maps once enough of your erstwhile club members have caused chaos. This thing is just all sorts of nightmare fuel as it doggedly stalks the player in an effort to suppress them, but what really makes it awful is the fact that you can't see it. That's right, it's an invisible nightmare stalking forward that you can hear, that you can feel close by and see the doors it opens, but you cannot see it except when your eyes are closed. Oh, and goddamn, its ability to travel between red doors has been the cause of more than a few jump scares, the bastard. Still, as much of all that may sound daunting, it's honestly pretty forgiven given the complexity of the objectives and the overall level of resistance set against you scales with the level of the host. Really, the part I found the trickiest was simply navigating Red Acre itself, because more and more of the map becomes accessible as you advance, ultimately evolving into a labyrinthine mess. Still, between the default hero items that flesh out your starting kit, and the major and minor hero powers you accrue as you level, you're more than empowered to effectively create a custom perk setup that allows you to better navigate the world. Really, I found it immensely rewarding to tailor things to support the way I played the game at any given time. And hell, the game's sacrifice system meant I didn't even have to worry about messing up my build, since the game provides me the handy dandy option to make an Eldritch Pact with one of the voices and sacrifice all my experience to them for reasons, and also to reset my level back to 1. Frankly, you could go through the game without ever dabbling in this, but hey, if you're into odd narrative quirks, or just want the cosmetics associated with sacrificing, it's an option. And if you have a vested interest in sending messages, you do get a Light of Rebellion for every 20k experience you sacrifice. Oh, and speaking of endgame shenanigans, if you're keen on aesthetics, higher level matches contain cursed ciphers, which are very cursed, but also serve as passkeys for the mysterious place between, an otherworldly space that you can go to for fashion. Yep. Though, if you are looking for a change of pace, there's also the Stalker mode, which places you in the shoes of a kid working with the antagonistic hive mind running Red Acre. Basically, your job's just to stalk and record club members, and frankly, this mode is pretty neat given it allows for a change of pace and some serious mind games, but the inability to properly queue for matching drove me insane, since manually clicking into an available match can become pretty trying. Now, visually speaking, I really like this game. It's pretty stylish, and there's some neat details to see when you poke around. I also really love the idea of having to close your eyes to see the horrific form of the shape lumbering close, or the way certain messages or details only crop up while you're like this. It's a genuinely neat aspect of the game. That said, I will say your initial options for customizing your character are a bit lackluster, and it will likely take spending quite a few of the snacks you earn to muster up on an outfit that you can consider satisfactory. That or messing around with the place between. Oh, and as far as quality of life bits go, there is a photosensitive mode for those who are epileptic in the audience. Figured I should mention that. But yeah, one of the other things about the aesthetics I just really appreciated was the sound design, which is delightfully uncanny. The ambient sound is more than enough to set me on edge even after playing the game some 90 odd hours. It's spooky. Plus, I couldn't help but enjoy so much of the voice acting, whether it's from the dream segments or the more acutely creepy segments like the murmurings of the sleepwalkers as they wander through the night, whispering about half-remembered moments. Also, the fucking noise associated with the shape drawing near. That shit is nightmare fuel. But yeah, that sums up the long form of my thoughts, so if I had to boil it down, I really like the Blackout Club. The storyline, the way it's told, is genuinely neat to me, and it's managed to foster a lovely community, something which really shines through with the nature of it as a co-op game. And while I have been told that the narrative conclusion of Blackout Club is creeping forward, it really didn't take me long to get immersed in all the insanity. Sure, I do have questions as to what the state of the game will be once its narrative notes have reached its inevitable finale, but even without the interactive backbone of enhanced horror, I enjoy the gameplay loop enough that it's become a weekly pastime for me. Enough that I could call the game a hit, provided you have or can make some friends to play it with. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. If you have an interest in supporting my efforts to create new indie reviews, interviews, and gaming content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know there's a new release. There's also a Discord, links in the description, so you can be part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. That said, I'll catch you all in the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.